So the Smith & Wesson Model 67 has become one of my favorite revolvers to shoot. It is the size of a .357 Magnum, but it's chambered only in .38 Special. You can actually see here on the side, it just says .38 Smith & Wesson Special on the side. It is almost identical, actually maybe identical in dimensions to the Smith & Wesson Model 19 or 66, with the exception of the cylinders a bit shorter. But I adore this revolver. The trigger pull is just exquisite on this thing. And yeah, it's just a great shooting, very reliable revolver, and it's very nice. But I took it out to the range today, and so now we're back home, and I'm going to do a brief clean of the pistol, or the revolver. I keep on using those words interchangeably. And I'm just going to take you guys along for the ride. So first things first, on a revolver, you got to clear it. So we're going to open up the cylinder using the latch here, push forward, and ensure that the revolver is empty. So maintenance on a revolver is extremely simple compared to a semi-automatic pistol, but there's still a few things I'm going to do. So if you watch any of my other cleaning videos, you know that I do this. I just take a rag or an old t-shirt or something like that, and I just start wiping the carbon. You can see some of it there. I just start wiping some of the carbon and crud off of the cylinder, both off of the front face of the cylinder and the back here inside of the crane. And I'm also going to do the same thing here where the breech face is, if you can see that, because there's some carbon buildup. Oh, grief, look at that. There's some significant carbon buildup that comes up there. And also around here where the forcing cone is, and along the frame, I'm going to wipe some of that off. Revolvers really have a tendency to get very, very dirty up there, because when the cylinder is closed, you have this slight gap right there. And that's where the flash comes through, and you get a lot of unburned powder or burning powder spewing out the sides as well. So this area here gets very, very dirty, and you want to wipe that down and get as much of that crud off as possible. I'm also going to pay some special attention to the ejector rod itself. Because if you're shooting a revolver and you're shooting it a lot, what will happen occasionally is you'll have some unburned powder or just dirt get underneath the ejector rod. In this case, I don't really have much here at all, but I'm still going to wipe it down a little, make sure that there's not a big chunk of powder in there or anything, or dirt, because what can happen is if the cylinder ejector rod is down, but it's poking up just a little bit like that, it won't close properly. And then you can have all kinds of trouble that comes from that. People say that revolvers don't jam. They absolutely do. And if you shoot revolvers enough, you will know they can jam if they're not maintained and cleaned, or if they're beat up too much. So what we're going to do, actually, next thing we're going to do is we're going to cock the hammer. And I'm going to get in here just a little bit. Not much dirt gets in here, but if any does, I do want to get it out. Also, a trick for this is if you open up the cylinder on a Smith & Wesson, you can hold the cylinder release backward and still cock the hammer. Smith & Wesson included ages ago a safety feature to where you cannot pull the trigger or cock the hammer until the cylinder is in battery, but you can fool the system by moving the latch manually. So just a little trick there in case you didn't know that. We're also going to briefly clean out this hand, which is the part here that when the hammer and trigger go back, it rotates the cylinder. I'm going to get in there, and also this area here where the cylinder rotates. Just wipe that down a little bit, get some of the fresh carbon off. Now, a lot of people say that they only clean their gun like every 6,000 rounds or something like that, especially with revolvers. A lot of guys do that. I'm not like that. With all of my guns, I clean them immediately after each and every range trip, because it's for a few reasons. One, I just want to maintain the guns and keep them clean, but also, why would you want to risk the gun having an issue just because it's dirty and you were lazy? Not only that, but also it gets you very familiar with the gun when you're disassembling it or cleaning it constantly. Also, the crud's just easier to remove as well, so I've mentioned that before in a few other videos. So now that we've wiped down the majority of the pistol, sorry, revolver, I'm going to keep using those interchangeably, we need to wipe down or brush out the crud from each of the cylinders, each of the cylinder chambers, and also the bore. So I have an appropriate sized brush here. Just going to do that back and forth for each of the chambers. Now, while this is a bit tedious, you will notice I'm not really having to do a lot of disassembly on a revolver. That's because revolvers don't really require much disassembly, if any at all, to clean them. I believe GunBlue490 on YouTube, if you ever saw his channel, he's a very wise man in a lot of respects. He has mentioned several times that there is no reason, unless something is broken, to ever go into the guts of a double-action revolver, if it's a well-made double-action revolver, to clean it or maintain it or anything like that. And for the most part, unless something is broken, I agree with him. All the maintenance you can do for the most part can be done on the outside of the gun. So I'm just going to wipe down all of the crud that got pushed out when I brush the front of the cylinder. I'm going to do the same for the back. And you see how much came out there. Now if we look down to the chambers, they are very, very clean and shiny now, which is a good sign. And now again, of course, this is a completely unloaded revolver. You can see where you might be able to see down the bore, it's also fairly clean as well. I'm not directly behind the camera anyway, so I'm not violating any safety nubbins that you guys may have. And now we are essentially done. Now some people, they will add some lubricant to the ejector rod or to the inside or outside. I almost never do that unless the cylinder is really starting to stick and bind, and right now that is not happening at all. It is spinning freely, so for my intents and purposes, we're done. However, if you want to, add just a drop of oil right here, where you have this recess here. Just add a drop right there, maybe a drop on the ejector rod, and just rub it in and cycle the ejector rod a few times. Likewise, if you really wanted to, cock back the hammer, put a drop in about there, or where the hammer connects to the frame, just slick things up, but there's no need to do that. The revolvers don't really require a lot of lubrication in order to function. So guys, that's the video. It's very, very simple. Revolvers are very simple to maintain, and they are very reliable as long as you take care of them. So, if you enjoyed this, please like the video, subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.